If you need a shortcut to being deeply informed on the highest stakes moments in global sports, you are in exactly the right place. We are jumping immediately into the scorching sands of Lusail, Qatar, where Max Verstappen absolutely secured a crucial victory.
He did, but that victory, while it looked dominant in the end, it only makes the drama bigger. Because the real story is that the World Championship battle, it's not over. It could have been decided in Qatar, but instead it is just red hot.
It's hanging by a thread.
Exactly. And it's all going down to the final race of the season. The tension there, you could feel it. It was all about strategy and, well, chaos.
Right. And our source for this deep dive is a fantastic minute-by-minute recap of everything that happened at the Qatar Grand Prix. So our mission is pretty critical. We need to break down exactly how these huge strategic gambles and some really dramatic on-track action kept this whole title fight alive.
And we have to lay out the stakes right away because the margins are just razor thin. So when they left Qatar, Lando Norris is leading the championship. He's on 408 points. Verstappen is right there with 396. That's a tiny 12-point gap. And you can't forget Oscar Piastri. Even after finishing second, he's only 16 points behind Lando with 392. This is all about those 12 points. Every single choice in Qatar now carries the weight of the championship.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Because we don't even have to wait long for the big moment. We're only on lap 8 when the entire race just gets turned on its head.
That's the one. Lap 8. A safety car comes out. Nico Hülkenberg crashes after some contact with Pierre Gasly, who also got a puncture. And that's the trigger. This one kind of isolated incident, it becomes the single biggest decision point of the entire race.
I remember watching it live, and it was just chaos. The pit lane looked like a traffic jam. Why did that one safety car cause such a huge immediate split in what the top teams were doing?
It all comes down to the mandatory two-stop rule for this race. You know, because of the high-speed corners at Lusail and the extreme lateral loads on the tires.
Especially the front left, right?
Especially the front left. So the governing body, they mandated that every driver had to make at least 2 pit stops. It was a safety thing.
And when you say extreme lateral lows, just for anyone listening, you're talking about those massive G-forces in the sweeping corners, correct? The tires are just getting chewed up.
Precisely. They couldn't do a normal one-stop. So when that safety car came out, it was like a golden ticket. 16 cars, including guys like Verstappen, Sainz, Alonso, they all just dived into the pits immediately for hard tires.
Get the stop done for cheap.
Exactly. They get that mandatory stop out of the way and prioritize having clean air later in the race.
And Red Bull, of course, they executed it perfectly. Verstappen himself even called it the correct decision. But McLaren, with Piastri and Norris, they were the only frontrunners who stayed out. That was the huge gamble.
It was. And this is where the whole debate starts. The teams that pitted, they basically reset their race. McLaren, on the other hand, they traded that certainty for what they hoped would be an advantage in clean air right now.
But I do have to push back a little. I mean, was it purely a mistake? If McLaren pitted both cars, they risked getting stuck behind a whole train of traffic, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't staying out have been an attempt to avoid that, even if it meant more tire wear later on?
And that's the genius and the heartbreak of it. You're right. They were prioritizing track position right then and there. But the risk was just immense. They now had to drive incredibly fast on old tires to open up this massive gap, about 26 seconds, to Fernando Alonso, who is now in P6. If they couldn't build that gap, they'd come out of the pits right into that traffic they were trying to avoid.
That's a phenomenal amount of pressure on Piastri, who was leading. And for a while, it really looked like his raw speed might just make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, after the restart on lap 11, our source says Piastri went like a shot.
Oh, his pace was just, it was on another level. He was completely dominating that first part of the race. He was setting fastest lap after fastest lap, pulling a 3.5-second gap to Norris and almost 6 seconds on Verstappen by lap 15. It felt like the Australian was trying to outrun the strategy itself.
He was trying to bend the race to his will, just through sheer speed.
Yeah.
But then, we start to hear those nervous messages on the radio.
And that's the price. The strategy pushed the tires right to their limit and beyond. By lap 22, Piastri is on the radio talking about serious problems with the front left tire, the exact one everyone was worried about. A lap later, Norris is complaining too, saying, "I'm having a hard time." They were burning through their tires just to make the strategy work.
So when they finally pit Piastri on lap 25, Norris on 26, did they do it? Did they get that 26-second buffer?
They did, just barely. And that's the tragedy of it. They achieved the main goal, They both came out of the pits just ahead of Fernando Alonso, so they didn't get stuck in traffic. And Alonso had become this huge factor because the train of cars behind him would have cost them 5, maybe 6 seconds.
So, okay, they saved their track position, but what was the ultimate cost of not pitting under that safety car? Because this is where the win was lost, wasn't it?
This is exactly where it was lost. It cost them the victory and maybe a much bigger championship margin. See, Verstappen, having pitted under the SC, he had fresh tires and, crucially, clean air, while the McLarens were fighting for their lives. So when they finally pitted, Verstappen just sailed into the lead and never looked back. He ended up with a massive, 11-second advantage.
So it wasn't just losing the lead, they effectively had to burn through their tires twice. Once before the first stop to build the gap, and then again after, just to keep pace with Verstappen's managed tires.
You've got it. They had nothing left in reserve. Piastri finished second, but you could hear the frustration in his voice. He said, "We didn't get it right. It's hard to digest." Based on pure pace, that win was theirs. But strategy is half the game, and Red Bull were just ruthless.
But the drama wasn't just at the very front. There was another incredible story unfolding just behind them with Carlos Sainz and Williams.
Oh, Sainz had an absolutely stellar race. Almost perfect. He jumped to P5 at the start, and then, just like Max, he used that SC pit stop perfectly. Got ahead of Antonelli, moved into P4, and then ran solidly in third for most of the race.
It was a real masterclass, wasn't it? For a team that's usually fighting in the midfield, Sainz himself said it best, "We did everything perfect today. I'm over the moon." And that was his second podium of the year.
It just shows you what happens when you minimize mistakes while others are making big ones. But the tension around that Williams at the end, it was brutal. The car was just hanging on by a thread.
It was agonizing to watch. Around lap 52, Sainz is on the radio reporting huge issues like understeer in the right curves. He was actually worried that something fell off the car. He was losing time so fast to Antonelli and Norris, and that podium spot looked so vulnerable.
And that struggle sets up the last bit of drama, this frantic three-way fight for the final podium spot. Antonelli was closing in fast. He was in the DRS window by lap 55.
And this is where Lando Norris becomes so critical to the championship story. Verstappen's already won, so every single point counts for Lando to minimize the damage. And he's stuck behind Antonelli, who's defending like his life depends on it.
He was. Antonelli put up a fantastic defense. Norris couldn't just sail past. You could feel the psychological pressure building. Norris pushing, knowing the championship is on the line with every move.
And then, on the penultimate lap, drama strikes again. It just handed Norris this lifeline, and he absolutely grabbed it.
He did. On lap 57, the second to last lap, Antonelli has a moment. Looks like some sudden oversteer. He loses a bit of grip, a bit of momentum. And that split second was all Norris needed. He powered past into P4, and those 2 extra points, that was pure damage control for his championship lead.
It just proves that even when you lose the big strategic battle for the win, a driver's performance, being opportunistic, it can save your entire campaign.
Exactly. And then the final flag drops. Verstappen takes the win, victory for Max, and he continues to hit the table, as our source put it. Piastri P2, the incredibly resilient Carlos Sainz P3, and Norris in P4.
We should probably give a quick mention to Fernando Alonso, too. He had a wild race, a full 360-degree spin on lap 42, but still came home in P7.
A chaotic race from start to finish. And Verstappen, on his victory lap, he knew it. He said they made the correct decision of stopping under the safety car, and it made a complicated weekend feel very strong.
So what does this all mean? What's the big picture as we head to Abu Dhabi for the finale?
It means we have the tightest season finale we've seen in years. Qatar boils down to that 12-point margin. Norris on 408, Verstappen on 396. Piastri is still in it mathematically, just 16 points back. This whole title fight is going to the wire, and it's all because of that one strategic split we saw in Qatar.
It really feels like the race hinged on 3 things then. The strategy out of the safety car, the incredible driver performances from Piastri and Sainz, and Lando's vital damage control to grab P4.
That's it. It shows how every single decision, every 10th of a second, is just magnified when the championship is this tight. It's not about one race anymore.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to think about as we look towards Abu Dhabi. Given that Lando Norris's championship lead is now only 12 points, which means, a non-score from him and a win from Max hands Verstappen the title, was McLaren's decision not to pit both cars under that safety car the single most costly mistake of their entire season?
It's a huge question, isn't it? Did that one decision on lap 8 ultimately decide the 2024 World Championship? They chose risk over certainty, and it cost them 7 points, and maybe the psychological edge. We'll get our answer in Abu Dhabi.